mission start!
Theme song.
Yeah. I picked that up.
That's where that was coming from.
Do, do, do.
I didn't want you to think I was just doing a random dance break.
I mean, I don't see what would be wrong with that if that's what
Absolutely.
you were doing.
No, there was nothing wrong with it at all.
We do that on occasion.
Absolutely. Just random dance breaks. 100%.
Like all the time.
Hi, Broham.
Heyo. How you doing?
How are you?
Pretty good.
Good.
Not too shabs.
Good.
Ah.
How are you feeling about the topic? Do you feel good?
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting one. When you mentioned it to me, I was like, ooh, there's going to be a lot. I'm going to put the over-under on how many times I say I've heard the term man up of about 25. Give or take. Yeah.
Like in your life?
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm just saying how many times I'll say it throughout this episode.
Okay. Gotcha.
I figured it probably wasn't like 25 instances.
Oh, God,
I was going to say, that's a lot.
No, that's
extremely low.
That's extremely low for my household.
Brutal.
For my family?
Oh, yeah.
Please. 25 in a week.
Can I get a quick rant out before we start in on this conversation, though?
Yep.
I had like 3 customers in a row like almost make me give up on humans and men in particular, because 2 of them pretty much took the product that they were returning out of my hands while I was opening it to take it out to make sure everything was in there, to show me how to open it and where everything is. And the 3rd one felt that it was his duty to pipe in while Gabby and Jen were helping a gentleman who had a defective phone. It wasn't charging. Mm-hmm. To tell them to maybe check to see if there's lint in the charger port after they had already cleaned it, and he had come in after they had already been working on that kind of stuff for the last like 10 minutes. Because
he's a big, strong man, and it's his job to tell him how to fix stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And considering Gabby used to work, like help out in mobile, she fucking knows phones.
Mm-hmm.
If she knows nothing else, she knows phones and connected devices like routers and such.
If this makes it to the episode, shout out to Gabby, one of our loyal listeners.
Yes.
Fan of the pod.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Fan of the podcast.
What's up, Gabby?
How's it going?
Fucking love her so much. She's one of the people in our, well, I guess this one will be the next, or the 2 episodes ago once this one comes out. She's one of the people that totally, if you need to come to me, girl, I will listen. Sorry, I just listened through our latest episode today.
7 subs.
We're out here, guys. We're moving quite along.
I bet one of those is Jordan, who was our viewer requested.
And shout out to Jordan.
Yep, for our viewer requested topic for today.
My work brother.
Loyal grunt.
Yes. Yes.
Former military man. Should we do like an intro? Are we doing intros anymore?
Oh yeah, we are. I was gonna just when it was time.
Like not right this second.
I just didn't know. I just didn't know if we were doing intros anymore. At this point, guys, you know.
The one that we just released. I had to be like, so hello everyone, and look at both of you, and now you're the one who's just like,
We're all gonna alternate.
I usually have an ear out for like when's an appropriate time to just like, oh, and on that note, the show now. I don't really try to let that go in organically.
I feel it.
Speaking of which, welcome to We Have Some Thoughts. Where tonight we'll be talking about a viewer requested topic. Again, our brother Jordan from their work, not mine. I don't work over there because we're states away. But it's well, you intro it. I was you brought it up. How are we want to call it?
So when we were talking, he was talking about the idea of men's mental health and the stigmatisms around it. Both good and bad, mostly bad. And it got me to thinking.
The stigma?
Yeah. Well, just is men's mental health like...
You said astigmatism.
Did I say
stigmatism?
Did I say stigmatism?
Yes.
I think so.
I might have.
I knew what you meant, so I heard what you meant. So
Thank you. This is how you know we've been around each other for too long. You have to help me with my grammar.
I know. Just like when you say idealistically, when you mean ideally.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
I love you.
I love you too.
It used to annoy the fuck out of me, but now it's just like I'm so used to it. It's like, okay, he means ideally, so I just hear ideally.
Okay, I respect that.
I love you.
Whatever. Just now I've lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry.
You guys threw me off.
Then let's start over.
Making fun of my grammatic.
Then why don't you just
stuff.
cut? Just cut, and then you can do the intro. Hello, everyone.
That would be your. Never mind.
Yeah, he's gonna keep doing. Now he's gonna keep burying me. You know what? Let's call this the Amanda and Christopher show then. I'm going.
No.
This is staying in, right? This whole thing is staying in, right?
You're like, absolutely. Or just talking about the topic of mental health. Speaking of mental health. And the struggles behind it. But no, he got me to thinking just how tough it is to be able to admit as a man when you have mental health issues and what avenues, like growing up. So I guess starting off with just a question. When you were growing up, do you remember any talk at all about men's mental health?
No.
Yeah.
Not in the home, not in public discourse, not anywhere. That just was not a thing.
To me, it was always the idea of man up. Like, oh, you're not going through anything, man up. You're emotionally upset, man up.
It was, any.
Yeah. Because I was going to be like, because Mom would talk about, like, Pap having depression and, like, talk to us about having depression and stuff like that. But then, now that I'm thinking about it, that wasn't until we were grown up, pretty much.
Do you find it now?
We did actually. The talk of that kind of thing did go around a little bit, but generally it was about mom specifically. It was not and it wasn't about depression. It was about mom's depression.
Yeah.
If I recall correctly, like that seemed like that's about the extent to which that kind of thing ever got brought up.
This topic actually kind of hits home for me because I suffer from bouts of depression, sometimes pretty severe, and it's one of those things that I couldn't imagine being younger talking to my family about it because I didn't know even how to bring up that topic. And it was really tough. It was super hard being a black man because for me, I would always hear, you don't have time to be that, which I don't even now growing up, I don't even know what that means anymore. Like, you don't have time to be, like, I'm not choosing.
Right. It's not like you're taking time out of your day to be depressed.
Yeah. It's not like,
it's just how you're feeling. It is a state.
Everybody gets, I need like 20 minutes. I'm going to take my depression break. I'll be right back.
I'll be right back. Give me a sec. We'll figure this out. But I remember growing up, there are times where I used to want to just sit alone. And I see it now in my adult life and able to actually analyze it a little bit better. I would be around a group full of people. Everybody else would be happy. And I'd want to pull myself away. Mm-hmm. When I was younger, I used to hear stuff like, oh, that's just trying to call attention to yourself. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, you just want to be the center of attention, so you pull yourself away.
Well, my mom said that to you.
Yeah.
Or not to you, but about you.
Yeah.
Like, that when you and I first got together, that first time that we either had them here or... I
think we went out there.
Mm-hmm. And you were having a really tough time because it was Christmas. Mm-hmm. And that was like... stuff was going on at home mm-hmm. with your family. Mm-hmm. And you just kind of needed to get away and collect yourself and mm-hmm. Be for a second. And you had left, and she was like, first off, trying to see if it was something we had done. I was like, mm-hmm. no, he just, there's stuff going on. He needs mm-hmm. time to himself. And then she immediately brought up the other one I was like, yeah, he used to do that all the time too. And then I would have to go and see what was wrong. And there would be this whole thing that if I didn't, then he would be upset. I'm like, that's not what he's doing. He's trying not to bring the room down. He's not trying to like pull attention to himself. He's trying to step away like quietly so that we can continue to have a good time.
Yeah.
Mom does that was her generalizing. Not to make excuses, bullshit, but for one thing, for what it's worth, that was all she ever fucking talked about back then. And also, when she has like a major problem with somebody that she's close with or is recently not close with anymore, she starts seeing the shit that they did in everyone. All people. And it's fucking infuriating. It's like really, really, really goddamn hard to deal with because it's fucking every single time. Without fail.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Sorry, I didn't mean to like interrupt you, but
no, you're fine. But it's stuff like that, and it was hard. It was hard enough to pull away, because I probably up until that point, I had built my life around the idea that I took care of others. You know, like I was there for everybody else.
Yeah,
I wanted to be, and I love that. I mean, it's something that even now, I like that part about my character. You know, it's something I enjoy doing. But there are times where it just becomes emotionally taxing, and then fighting with your own inner demons.
Mm-hmm.
The only way I feel that I can still do that and take care of others is by removing myself from the situation. You know, like it just seems like that's the only way to kind of get both needs met, in that I know I'm going through it, but I also don't want to mess up the people who I care for. So maybe if I pull myself away in this instance, they can still enjoy themselves without me necessarily having to bring them down.
Yeah, I get that.
So I not break this all about me, because I feel like I could sit on a soapbox and cry about this all night. What do you feel are the hardest parts? And you know what? I'll take this in 2 steps. For you as a woman, when you see me or any man that you've been associated with going through that type of phase, probably more so me because we and I have spent so much time together, what does it make you? This is going to sound really stupid. Does it make me look like less of a man in your eyes?
No, God, no. Okay, so I am probably not the right person to ask that kind of thing to. Either I am the perfect person to or not the right person to, because Chris and I both suffered from depression, and us being so close growing up, like that's not, I don't have that same stigma in my mind about mental health when it comes to men. Because of me and Christopher growing up together and both of us suffering from depression, that's been a normal part of my life, knowing that it hits both sexes, you know? So I never really, even though I see it in the world outside of me, in my own personal, like, world, in my mind, there's not a difference. So I understand when you're going through it, what, like, and I've learned what you need when you are.
Yeah.
So it's not, I don't see you as less of a man, because it happens to most, if not everyone.
Yeah. I was just about to ask you, growing up with it, with where you were raised, when did you finally get okay? Like, when did you finally start realizing that it was all right to keep feeling the way you were feeling?
When did I realize it was okay? The thing with me is, my thing is, I don't know what particular part of, like, my brain problems this comes from, but I have a much, much harder time accepting that the way I feel is not correct. So no matter what I was feeling, I've since I can literally, for as long as I can remember, since like my first solid memory was when I was 3 years old, and ever since then, I've always been like totally sure that whatever the hell way I was feeling was exactly the correct thing to feel. obviously that's not good, right? That's got its own set of problems. But to think that I needed to suppress my feelings, now I absolutely did learn quickly that I needed to suppress my my expression of them.
Yeah.
And I would not say that I have unlearned that yet. To get to me to be like really, really fully emotive, I either have to be with people that I feel just fully safe being vulnerable with, or I need to boil the fuck over, which thankfully doesn't happen very often. More often than not, when it does, it's not around other people at all. Every now and then it does happen, like at work. If it's just a really, really bad enough time and I can't that day, and it scares the shit out of me seeing how other people react to it, because like it's clear they're nervous. Like, every time it happens, they're like, people start pandering real hard and getting kind of like touchy and easy around me, and I'm like, good, that's good that now I made everyone else feel that way, you know. That's awesome. Now I have like fucking proof positive that I'm scary. That's awesome to know.
You're like,
I love that.
That's what I was going for. Thanks, guys.
I needed that on top of this. That's great.
You guys have that in common, because it's very, like, people at work say to me, yeah, well, RJ never gets mad, until they see him mad, and then it's like everyone comes to me and is like, is RJ okay?
Yeah.
Like, he got really upset. Is he okay?
I do.
So, yeah.
I think part of that for me is not just like, it's not that I'm so suppressive, it's that like I legitimately am as chill as I seem like I am almost always. And if I'm like extremely not just like kind of okay, then I'm obviously in a worse than usual depressive state. But that doesn't like, that's not loud, right? That doesn't get in anybody's way. And so it just tends to get overlooked.
Yeah.
Which is fine, because most of the time when I'm feeling like that, I'd rather not get attention. There are people who are particularly attuned to it. My dude Troy from work that I talked about before, he's, you know, we always got each other's backs that way, and it's kind of nice every now and then just to have somebody who does care enough to even notice, let alone to say anything when they do notice, you know. But so yeah, no, I never fully. I mean, I'm much better now than I like ever have been. I'm always growing that way, I think. Getting healthier about expression, but never really got all the way there, I don't think. It doesn't help that I never figured out a way to actually like deal with that shit, because it really isn't like, most of it's not long term.
Ever thought about therapy? Like ever?
Oh,
because
totally.
I know that's another stigma that I run into too. Because I know
I am that person. I'm that guy who never ever shuts up about therapy. I've never done it, but that's like 0% stigma and 100% money. Shit just as expensive, and I don't have it.
I get that. That's one of those things that I wish businesses would start seeing more. That should be a part of every health care plan that a business will offer. Is mental health, whether it be going to a therapist, involving in group sessions, something close in your area or around you.
You know, the funny thing is that it actually is for a lot of like major corporations. That is built into your.
Is it?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, we have that on our insurance.
Do we?
Yeah.
It's just not talked about enough, though.
Yeah.
Like you
that's why they had those.
Yeah. Like you get that 1 month a year where it's like Mental Health Awareness Month. Like, guys, people who struggle with this are going through it on a yearly basis. Like this should be a regular conversation. It shouldn't be something where we just, all right, we got a month for it. It's like African American Month. Get to know the blacks. Okay, we're done. Shortest month out of the year. We're out. It's been real, guys. Thanks.
You know, the thing about that is like, it's so fucking ridiculous. That and every other month that has a dedicated month to it.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, fellow super lefties. I really hate the notion of Black Pride Month. I hate the notion of Pride Month. Also, was it June, right?
Yeah.
And it's not because it's because they shouldn't be necessary. Like, I don't hate the celebrations themselves. I think that we like currently unfortunately need them. I hate that like it's that all these things aren't normalized enough, and that they're so left out of education.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we shouldn't need to have a month dedicated to celebrating the lives of the great black people. Like, we should be as fucking aware of them as we are of Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah.
Like,
it should be just part of regular history.
We should know these people already. We should already be glorifying them. And it's fucking stupid that we keep the scope, like, extremely... you talk about Malcolm X in high school. You talk about Martin Luther King.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not Malcolm.
Oh,
We learn about Harriet Tubman and Rosa Parks and King and W.E.B. Du Bois. And that's about it. You know? And damn straight, we should be learning about those people, but it's like there's not just the four of them.
Like,
you know?
There's many more.
Yeah.
Many more.
The history is... American history is intertwined with it.
Mm-hmm.
In the most negative and sometimes positive ways.
See, I feel like the thing is that the stigma seems to be diminishing around mental health issues in general, and not just for men. I mean, in general, like, because you know, how many guys out there are there like me who never ever shut up about you should totally get fucking therapy. Like, this is a problem, and you can't fix it on your own. But like, the cool thing is it's treatable, and you have that option. If you have that option, rather, if you're able to get that kind of help, then like, please don't just not do that. That's
right.
You maybe can't like fix it. You can't like get fully cured of it, but like, you can become better able to deal with it, and you can come to the point where it affects your life so much less. And if you can, you know, if you can manage to exercise that kind of control over your own condition, then like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah. I know for me why I've never really sought it, other than, you know, small sessions here and there. I have the voice in the back of my head saying, man up, deal with it.
I don't. I've always resented the shit out of it anytime anybody has said that to me, because it's like,
Yeah.
like,
I hate it.
Don't fucking tell me that I'm not okay to feel the way I feel about something. Like, if I'm sad right now, I'm fucking sad, and you can piss the fuck off, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Now I'm sad and pissed. Great. You know, like, I can do both.
Now we're dealing with both emotions.
You know,
Yeah.
so I've only ever felt like people who said that were shitheads. I've never once felt like I was diminished because they didn't think I was a man enough, when I know for a fact that they're bullshit at being a man.
Just called your mom a shithead.
And I'm so sorry, Mama. I really am. But like, if that's the way that you talk about this kind of stuff, check yourself. You're wrong.
Yeah. And the cool thing about being a parent now is that you see that. I would never tell that.
No.
I'm sorry, child one. I apologize.
Yeah.
I would never tell him. In a million years would that phrase ever come out in regards to that. If I see him scurrying around because of a bee, sure.
Man,
You know, like, come on, man. Swat at it.
That
it's okay.
is.
Yeah, but even then, that's in jest.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
well, you know, here's the thing, right? That
Mhm.
to talk about it seriously, if we're going to eliminate the stigma fully, we need to eliminate that language fully.
Yeah.
just get rid of it
Joking or
altogether.
not, you know what I mean? Because it's like,
Yeah.
if that can be said as a joke and be taken as a joke, then it means that there's still the underlying core of that belief about what masculinity should be. That's recognizable enough to make it an understandable joke. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 'Cause that actually just made me think of, because I'm not going to use the word, but there are words that you and your brothers use to each other in jest, even though you know you can actually come and talk to each other, like, bawl your eyes out.
Yeah.
But there are words that you guys use and phrases that you guys use that are like, I think that's a big part of it when it comes to the stigma of mental health with men, is men being in touch with their feelings is considered unmanly.
Or weak. Yeah.
Unmanly. Because weak is unmanly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything other than the stereotypical macho man is not what a lot of society, especially in this area, says you should be.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. It's funny because then that puts a whole bunch of different things into perspective. Like, you've seen how often I have to defend my love of Coldplay.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, I'll defend Coldplay to the death of it. It's nothing.
I would love to, like, back when he
I'm judging
was
you.
I feel
he's
it.
totally judging.
I feel it, and that's fine.
I'm not really.
Back when he was more like passionate and less like, music is music.
Back when I was a dick about music, dude.
Yes,
Be
back
real.
when he was an absolute dick about music.
I was a shithead.
To hear the two of you like debate about Coldplay.
Oh man. what got me about Coldplay, and it's still to this day, very few musical groups bring together multiple people from different walks of life the way I've seen Coldplay do. That live version of Fix You. I have never seen a stadium that crowded with so many different types of people, other than like maybe Mike.
Or the Beatles.
No, even with the Beatles, because think about the Beatles and crossover appeal.
God, I can't think of his name. Holy shit, what's his name?
Which one? There's 4 of them.
The one that was still alive and
Paul?
Yeah.
Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Fuck. I'm sorry to everyone in the world.
You're talking about when they did Hey Jude at the Olympics, yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. Okay, so I'll give you the Beatles.
So
yeah. But to watch that sea of humanity, so diverse, having that same emotional response to one song at the same time is something I never will take away from a band being able to do on that big of a scale. Like, it's different if you get your niche. Like, you get your group, your core group of fans. You entertain them. You do what you do with them. They end up loving you. But to do it in a stadium and have them sing along and actually feel it, like you saw people crying in the stands over that song, which that song isn't really not supposed to make you cry. But, well, I mean, if you feel it, you feel it. You can't really help how you feel about it. So that is my defense of Coldplay.
Perpetuating the stigma.
I'm working on it, man. I am a work in progress. This book is not yet written.
I'm sorry. This is just a really heavy topic, so I have to have some levity. Give you a hard time.
You're over here making me defend my love of Coldplay. So that's his judgmental glaze. His judgmental gaze.
His judgmental glaze.
Glaze.
Donut.
I went straight to ham. I like savory over sweet generally.
That's fair.
I have such a sweet tooth right now.
I got such a savory tooth. I want fucking cheesy garlic bread. And
We
I
just
have all
had
the stuff to make cheesy bread. I made some really fucking killer penne alla vodka yesterday. The rock, which is why the screwdrivers. And
I was like, we switched it up from the beer this time, very nice.
Well, that's after the screwdrivers. I don't have that much vodka left because of all the screwdrivers I had last night. So, it's I got all the stuff to make the bread, and then I didn't do it because I didn't feel like it, and now I wish I had because I want to take some to work tomorrow with the leftover penne alla vodka, but I can't because I'm not going to do that tonight. I was going to do laundry today too.
Nope.
Yep.
But no, now I remember why I started talking about my love of Coldplay.
Hang on. We were already kind of paused.
Were we? Okay, let's pause it.
Because I need another screwdriver.
Yes, I will. Yes, I will. And I'm gonna make you love me. Ooh. So, what makes a man a man? And you're absolutely right. I have to start questioning certain things that I do. Because put me in an environment with men who, former or current athletes, that toxic masculinity, I guess is a good way of putting it. And it brings me back to a place where the person I used to be. Whereas now being around you and our kids and having enlightened conversations that have really expanded who I am as a person, they're the same person, but they're not the same as far as how they respond to things.
Mm-hmm.
Like what just happened to
Colin? Yeah. He was watching a football game.
Watching the Cowboys,
Yeah. His team,
mm-hmm.
Like threw an interception or something like that. His quarterback did. And when he saw that happen, he just... I had my headphones on. All of this was plugged in. We were waiting for you. He had his headphones up like this. Right? But mine were on, and all I hear is, fuck! I'm like, what the? I was on my phone. I was like, whoa. And I look up and I see that there was an interception. I'm like, oh, okay. Okay. Like,
and nowhere.
Recording pro tip. You lean in to be quiet. You lean out to be loud. You did it. You did it backward.
No, that was on purpose. I know. I know this.
I but still don't.
It's like that hurt. That hurt a lot. But no.
That's why I did it, because he did that to me.
And for some reason, she wanted you to share in the pain. Yes. I don't know why.
Because it couldn't just be me. It couldn't.
But to me, where else in my life does that happen?
Are you saying it doesn't, or that you're not aware of where it might?
Doesn't.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't.
It doesn't anywhere else.
If anybody who saw me not in that environment, who knows me, who sees me regularly, saw that, would be like, Now, mind you, the guys who I watch football with, who talk football with me, they wouldn't be surprised at all. They probably would just start laughing. So that's where I have to start. If I'm going to make myself better, that has to be me all day long. And that's where the mental health part of this, that's why I thought this conversation was so interesting. Because
it's really, really hard to become like that particular kind of like self-aware of your own problematic behaviors and thought processes, the kind of stuff that seems completely normal when you're in a particular environment or when it only happens in your head. But when you catch yourself doing it and you notice that, like, when it's really, really good when you finally get to the point where you catch that, you doing that and think, that was weird. Yeah. Because it's like, just because you're aware of it, but then also because that it feels alien enough that you recognize it as being not you. That, you kind of know you're on your way, I guess, once you've hit that point. Like, because it's not about how you, when you are in that mindset, right? It's not like, that's not representative of the real you. A lot of people might say it is, and I think those people are full of shit, or maybe are at least a little bit self-righteous, because like, what people say in private or what people think and don't say out loud is the real them, and to an extent maybe that's true, but like, I think it really does depend on how you react to realizing you've been doing it. That matters more than the doing of it, like saying a word you're not supposed to say isn't necessarily indicative of your character. It's why I hate thought. Like, it's something that the moment it happens you realize, oh fuck, that was not okay, that was not an okay thing, and I feel like that shouldn't be just overlooked. Like, that's progress. That's moving toward being the you want to be, and I think that should be recognized.
And that's an interesting point, because in our current cancel culture society, and I am victim of it probably as much as anybody else. There are times where I'll hear a phrase come out of somebody's mouth that shouldn't be there, even if it was a while ago. Like, take, for example, you guys heard the story about the kid who was on College Game Day, who he held up a sign that said, he held up his Venmo account and was asking for money for a beer account. Just, funny. College Game Day does stuff like that. They go to college campuses. Yeah, just being silly.
Okay.
Money for more beer.
Yeah, he ended up getting ridiculous amounts of money Venmo to him.
Okay.
And then he took it a step further and decided to start raising money for charity.
Nice.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. He was doing it for a children's hospital. It's amazing. He ended up raising, I think, almost $2 million, if not over $2 million, for his local children's hospital. Just doing this. his local newspaper wrote a story about him, and the reporter there found old tweets when he was 16 of him being racially insensitive.
Mm-hmm.
And people immediately were going for the cancel.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately going for the cancel. Here's a kid who...
We do love our outrage.
Yeah, he didn't specify that $2 million had to go to only the white kids. Like, that wasn't... He didn't do that. He grew. He changed his ways. He was remorseful about it. Even though the guy who wrote the article, he came out with an apology before the article even came out.
You know what? How fucking lucky are we to be the bridge generation between the previous one and the next one?
Mm-hmm.
That, like, we were still young enough to be young and stupid when our words were being immortalized on the internet, but not that young.
Mm-hmm.
Not 16. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, obviously, like, when we were 16, LiveJournal was a thing, but, like, who's ever going to be able to find your fucking LiveJournal?
Yeah.
You were
Right.
using some, like, edgy ass fucking sad kid bullshit username, and
Mm-hmm. Please, somebody dig up my MySpace page. I'm sure my MySpace page is fire, guys. Like, it's gonna get us all canceled. So I'm sorry about that. If that is the case, if my MySpace page gets our podcast canceled, I apologize.
I'm
ahead of
pretty
time.
sure Zuckerberg just like integrated everything and then like wiped.
You know what? I would have believed the same thing, but about 2 years ago, no, almost 3 years ago now, I looked. You could still get access to your MySpace page.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
well, I bid
was-
everyone, don't go looking, but I am pretty sure that I had the good sense to fucking delete my account at some point. I think I did that back in college.
Mm-hmm.
I think I did.
I definitely
know.
deleted my LiveJournal. I know that for sure. Because I went and tried to look for it, not super recently, but recently enough, and it's definitely like no variation on any username I would have used at the time exists. So it's gone, expunged, which is fucking really, really good. 'Cause, I mean, I don't think I had anything super problematic on there, but it was pretty fucking emo.
Like, oh, it was
I
emo.
had a life journal.
There wasn't. Yeah, I didn't. Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
I did. I did.
I wasn't,
All kind
like,
of shit.
I barely was even on MySpace though. I didn't understand it. I still don't fully get.
Boomer.
I know.
You boomer.
I am.
No,
I
because
also. Well, I mean,
I'm a
like, there's
50-year-old woman at heart.
a reason I haven't booked Face in so many years, and why I have, like, before this, us doing this thing, I tweeted one time ever, and that was probably 7 years ago.
Yeah.
I never understood Twitter. I still don't really understand, like, how to use it. Same reason I don't really, like, I was really, like, pretty jazzed to get on Mastodon when I got on Mastodon. I thought, this is really, really cool. You know, like, it's specifically leftist social media. I dig that. That's really, really cool. And I went there, and it turned out it is really, really cool. But it's exactly Twitter, and I don't fucking know how to use Twitter. Because I mean, I get it. Like, on the one hand, you just, you have a thought about a thing, you throw it out there, see what happens. I don't fucking get that.
Yeah.
to me,
I don't understand doing that. I mean, I like to read it. I like to scroll Twitter, but I don't like ever have the urge to fucking tweet because I'm like, what do you say? I don't get this.
Yeah,
I don't
the
know what
only
to say.
thing I've said has been like, other than like the updates
Episode
for
announcements, yeah.
it has been like I've been scrolling through, started reading a thread, and then like responded to someone else.
My only two have been responses. Actually, the one from 6 or 7 years ago was also a response. That seems fine. That seems like, I don't know, replying to somebody. I don't know. It seems like a weird thing to get into, but
like, I absolutely love it. I love it more now that we started doing this because now I see the business behind it. Like, I always knew advertising on it was huge. I've seen people turn careers, especially like comedians and musicians. I've seen them turn careers out of this, but I've never really had the urge or the necessity to look into the marketing and the advertising behind how these work. But since we've started this, I've really started to deep dive into it, it's fascinating. Like the algorithms behind it, the ability to be able to target specific markets. I know this is way too capitalist for you guys, so I apologize, but I find it to be absolutely fascinating because there's been very few times in history where you've been able to target demographics as specifically as you can with those two.
Well, and as an individual too, not just like, giant companies with like huge research departments that do polling and shit to figure this out and market research. Like, the data is made plain to anybody who has an account. You can just pull up. I mean, I saw earlier, I didn't know this until this morning, but I saw earlier you can pull up the analytics data on any individual tweet of yours. What the fuck?
Yeah. Like it's so cool. It's
the commodification of attention, and it's so weird to me that's even a thing. But god damn it, you play that strong enough, like you can earn a living with it, which is fucking nuts.
Yeah, it's so cool. I enjoy it so much, and not only that, but just for what we talked about in that first episode, never before in history have you been able to feel so connected, yet feel so separated. At any given moment, watching, one of the coolest things to me is to look at Twitter while I'm watching the Super Bowl. Because in that moment, on that space, especially in that feed, you're one of a couple million people doing the exact same thing at the exact same time. And talking about it in that space.
See, I think that is kind of cool. Well, I mean, because I do that for sure. I substitute. Sorry, I'll make this quick. I substitute that kind of thing for like real connection all the time, and we all do. And the thing is that in theory, I think that's really cool. Like on the page, that sounds like a really, really cool idea. But what it does is it increases our fucking alienation. Yeah. Because when we do that, we actually en masse we replace real life connection and real meaningful relationships with other people with this completely manufactured thing that like really ultimately does us more harm than good. And even for a person like me who like that's about as much social engagement as I really can get most of the time, and maybe that's better or worse, I don't know for sure, but I feel like this is why study after study keeps seeming to indicate that like social media is making us all miserable. And I think it's because it's like, well, because it's turning socializing into a product where it's something that we, once upon a time,
we just did it just because it felt good. Yeah.
Well, because we need it. Which is why we have such a strong response to this kind of thing of us being able to have these completely false connections. It's making us accept that that's as much as we can get.
Yeah.
And it's great because we can do it from the comfort of our own couch. Yeah. Which means that like, that we'll take that substitution because like that's the amount of energy that we have to dedicate to it. And that's about as much energy as we generally have to dedicate to such a pursuit. And what's that keep us doing?
Yeah.
That's what
keeps us working. We don't need to stop working to regain the energy we need to forge real social connections and have an actual fucking life.
Because you have it available to you, right? Or at least it seems like you have it available to you right in front of your hands.
Exactly. And it keeps us in the fucking cycle.
And then there's still that,
and then that itself is capitalized.
Because we were talking about how social media is unifying, but then it's also very isolating. And with that comes, even if like the person's name, like on Facebook or whatever, there's still that anonymity, which can then allow certain people to then propagate the toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
That causes so much male mental health issues.
I agree.
Because it's easier when you're playing a game online that you just kind of hop in there with a bunch of other people playing around the world to hear someone throw out the F word And I don't mean fuck.
Oh, yeah. I was like, fuck?
Like, are we saying fuck? Are we PGing? Is that a thing? No, I see what you mean. And be all sorts of a keyboard thug.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so to take that a step further, though, because especially for what you want for a society, what makes you nervous in big crowds then? Like, what gets you? Because, take for example, and I had a very specific moment in my head. Remember when we went to Disneyland? I come alive in moments like those. Like, there's something about being around that sea of humanity, enjoying themselves as much as I seem to be enjoying myself, or am enjoying myself. Those around me seem to be enjoying themselves as much in that space. What in that setting makes you nervous?
I don't like being touched by someone I don't know.
That's fair. But even then, like, because it's that many people around you with the potential to be able to touch you.
That, and I don't like feeling crowded. Like, I'm okay if I'm, like, in a small space. It's not claustrophobia to where I'm afraid of small spaces. I don't like feeling crowded. You know, like when you get under a blanket when you're little, and after a while it kind of gets stuffy in there. It's like all of your air. You're using up all of your air. That's what it feels like when there's a lot of people around me.
Oh, okay.
So it's not that I don't like being around people. I love being around the people that I love. I just don't like being around a lot of people I don't know because I don't really like physical touch anyway, unless it is somebody that I love. Like, I love cuddling with you. Me and Christopher, even when we were younger, used to cuddle. You know, if it's somebody I don't know, I have to hide it from like clients and whatnot at work. That if even my finger brushes theirs when I'm handing them something, I have to kind of like wipe it off.
Sure.
You know?
Understand though. It's just I never. You know what? Thank you for explaining that to me, because I always took it as the idea that you just didn't like being around that many people.
No, it's the feeling of being crowded.
How do you do in groups, Christopher?
Really, it depends. Hearing you talk about all this stuff, Amanda, has got me kind of thinking how I feel about that stuff, because I have a similar reaction, but it really depends on the circumstances. And I think my frame of mind, like being in large crowds in a place like a theme park or something. I don't really dig that. But where a lot of that for me is I don't like to be touched either, but when I'm not expecting it. Like, it really doesn't matter if it's in a context in which that's just going to happen, and I, with my own knowledge, put myself there. Like, I for me, large crowds, I'm a little bit averse to it because of I'm just easily overstimulated. I can only deal with just so much external input at once before I start to fly apart. Like, I can't really do all that much noise and cacophony.
Cacophony, good word.
Thanks.
I've never heard that word. I'm putting that one into that. Hey Siri, save the word cacophony for me, please.
Cacophony means.
I'm sorry, I had to do that because that word's awesome. Go ahead.
But like at a concert, like, I'm fucking living for it. I'm all up on that shit. I love it. I love that the noise is so big it fills up everything. I love that the particular kind of, even though it's aggressive, it's not violent so much action of being in a pit. Like,
can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Have you ever done any research on sensory processing disorder?
No.
Do some research on that for me.
I just always assumed I was low-key autistic.
Well,
honestly.
I mean, I don't know if it technically is on the spectrum or not, but it is often associated with autism because it's very similar. He can't take a lot of sensory input within certain things. So they've been working with him a lot. That's why now he can sit and play a video game for a while when that used to be too much for him. Or he can now play with messy things when that used to be like, if he got his hands messy, he was like this until we wiped them off.
I feel that.
Yeah.
That was so me as a kid, only I did the washing myself, but still, I
Right.
Yeah. Oh, shit. Yeah, maybe. Could be. Because I've got fucking conditions, man. Like, there's just sometimes things are fucking awesome. I don't know what it is, too, because I don't have my full grasp on what all the criteria even are for when it's okay and when it's not okay. Mm-hmm. Like I said, at a concert, I can be sardine packed into a fucking crowd and love it, like, to death. I absolutely love it. And it's not I don't mind it. I really, really enjoy it. I love the physical contact of that many people all at once, being that into one thing together and being so attuned to it together that there's no amount of contact that's uncomfortable. There's no amount of contact that's inappropriate. It's so unified. Mm-hmm. And it's so, like, I don't know. I don't think I even know a good word for the particular kind of connection that people in a fucking mosh pit feel together. But mm-hmm. it's a very real thing. And I mean, like, I don't know. I don't think you need to research that. I'd be really, really interested if somebody did. I'd love to know, like, what is what are the psychological mechanisms behind why that happens. But there's not a single fucking... There's no show of any genre of rock or a lot of other things too that kind of thing doesn't form somewhere in the crowd. Mm-hmm. People just do that together for some reason mm-hmm. when rhythm is involved, you know? Mm-hmm. And I fucking love that. But then at work, I'm on one call and the phone rings on another line and two people are in my office for some fucking reason talking way louder than they goddamn should, and then somebody just walks through from one room to another, and then an email fucking thing pops up, and it's not like I don't feel like any of these things all individually need my attention, but they are all screaming at me at once, and I want to just tear my skin off and throw it across the fucking room and run out. Like, I can't deal with that shit. I don't really know why one's too much and one's not 100%. So how I am with large crowds completely changes per context. Theme park, not super okay. Metal show, fucking great. Crowded fucking convenience store, not awesome. Crowded grocery store, fine.
I'm
no idea why one matters and the other doesn't.
I was like, yeah, you'll go to a slower grocery store.
Yeah, I can't. I
kind of almost make a game out
part
of, like,
that
dodging
is,
people.
Yeah, but yeah,
and also being like the one
part
nice
of
person.
that too is working Thanksgiving at
in Morito,
at Kroger
mm-hmm.
when I worked there. Because that whole week before Thanksgiving
is a nightmare.
You can't, there's constant the beeping, there's the fussing, there's the people in your face, and this said that it was this price, and I have these 20 coupons to use on this one item. Sorry, I can't use all of those on 20 items on just this one item. I can only use one coupon per item. And, this says that you can double it up. No, it fucking doesn't. And get out of my face. And then
it's over now.
It's over behind you.
It's over now.
At another register, and they're having to get around their cart. So they just back into your spot where you're standing there trying to ring up another customer, and they're touching you. And it's just.
Thankfully, never been there in that exact scenario. I mean, I worked at where you guys work for a couple of years, but I never ever was front of house. Like, you know, I've only ever done work in the background, so I've always been kind of able to skirt the vision of the customers and stuff.
Oh man!
But
you know what? It's crazy though, because and maybe this growing up in California probably does this to you then, or at least partially helps with it. I've never had an adverse reaction to large crowds because my whole life has been large crowds. I was
going to ask how you feel about all this. Like, what's your thing? How do you do?
Never have had an issue. Not in any large setting. I've been in stadiums full of people. it's never gotten me. The only time I think it ever does anything negative, and it's just been recently, is because I saw what it did to you, child one and child 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then that put me at a place where I felt like I had to be defensive, which is weird.
That's a funny thing, too, is that before children, it seems to have gotten worse with each one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually something Lindsay DeFranco was talking on a conversation with, because they were actually talking about that, and that's something that happened with her second, is that her anxiety got worse. And it's like an actual medical thing for her. Now, I don't know, because I never actually talked to a doctor about mine. But like, I completely understand that from her, because it was the same way. Like, when I was in high school, I didn't mind like going to dances and stuff like that. You know, I did, well, not high school, but junior high. High school was a whole different animal. But yeah, junior high and stuff like that, I didn't mind so much going to dances. Granted, it was way smaller than the school you went to.
Yeah, by far.
But, you know, I was still able to go there. I would hang out with people. I was fine walking through the halls in school, getting like bum rushed by people I didn't even know, because they were walking this way and I had to go that way and I had to fight my way through them and all that. But then with each kid, it would get a little worse, to where after child 1, I wasn't really okay walking through a hall full of people walking the opposite direction. I wouldn't freak out if they touched me so much, but it was still, you know, trying to keep them from touching me as much as I could. Child 2, it got worse, like out, like at the store when I was working there or whatever. And that's the first time I really actually had a mini freak out, was working Thanksgiving. Like, I actually had to, like, when I took my break, I had to go outside. I ended up smoking like 3 cigarettes in a 15-minute period to try to calm myself down. And I got as far away outside as I could from anyone, because I had to, like, you know. And then after child 3, it's gotten even worse, to where I do as much as I can to avoid any crowds, because if somebody touches me, I start hyperventilating.
It's so funny you don't, because it seems like your reaction to what are for most people completely routine social interactions or social situations are becoming more and more aversive to you. It's like you don't realize the chaos you live with, and it's like worked its way deep into your brain. Like, because I mean, like, the shit that you guys just like live with on a daily basis, all the child noise, like, puts me on the edge of my fucking seat. It is so completely opposite to what I know, because here, well, things are very deliberately quiet. I worked really goddamn hard to make it that way, because dealt with a lot of the same with, you know, a kid and a very, very needy mom and 4 dogs all in one pretty goddamn small space for too many years, and all of everything that goes with that. Like, I know the toll that took on me, and I knew it real early. Seems like for you it's been more or less the same thing, only you adapted to dealing with it in the scenario in which you needed to deal with it, so it manifested itself in other ways. I bet is what psychologists would say.
I mean, possibly. Well, I don't know.
I think that probably has something to do with it. Well, I mean, because if it is specifically linked, and you're aware of it, of the symptoms of it becoming more pronounced with every new child, right? Especially, and I didn't even know that. It's really, really crazy you brought that up, because I didn't know that was like a medically documented thing that women go through. Like I now that you say it, I'm like, fuck yeah, it would be. Of course, that makes complete sense, but it never even occurred to me to think about before. But that you have to deal with so much of the stress of child rearing, basically on your own. And even if you're not on your own, you only have one other person, which is really, really contrary to like the way that humans would like naturally do things without any other like societal impositions. The super cliche old phrase, it takes a village to raise a child. Like once upon a time, that was literally true.
Yeah.
It was really, really rare. And even among societies that exist in isolation today, it's pretty rare for children to think of like any one set of people as their parents. They're raised literally by everyone. And then there are some groups who even think of, I think this is really fascinating, that there are groups of people, small tribes in isolation, that they don't think of the paternal relationship as being like a specific one, like a single specific man. Like that they believe that babies are formed through the accumulation of semen.
Oh.
Yeah. And so they'll go out of their way, the women in this situation, they'll go out of their way to have sex with like as many dudes with strongly positive qualities as possible. So they'll want to have relations with the funniest guy and the strongest guy and the wisest guy and the most skilled hunter, and they want all of those qualities to be distilled into the baby that they're forming. And then all of those men become the baby's father, and they may have a specific attachment to that one woman as the mother who birthed them. Similarly, though, they'll spend time with all of those men in the hopes that they'll pick up on each of those strongest qualities, and they'll be cared for and raised by all of the women, because everyone's got something to contribute. Every time I find out about this stuff, it's things like this that like make me go like, when outside influences are not a thing, humans left to their own devices, they just do this like really equitable shit. It's really democratic shit. I don't know. It strengthens a lot of my arguments, I think.
I hate your father-in-law so much.
What did he do?
And I can't wait. I should have never showed him how to use Siri. He just texted me, he said, if Dallas loses to the Jets, just burn your phone because I'm going to text you until my phone stops working. I hate him so much.
Why did you teach him how to use Siri?
I know, I shouldn't have taught him how to use Siri.
His blind ass wouldn't have.
I wanted to ask you something. Something came up the other night because you were talking with your brother and stuff. Although this was in a more not this time. I don't remember which conversation it was. But you were talking about him being I want to say a Cardinals fan. You brought up you never lived in, what is it, Arizona?
Yeah, we never lived in Arizona. I've never lived in Dallas.
That's what I was gonna say. What the fuck is your excuse for being a fucking Cowboys fan?
So because Dallas was the team when I was first started watching football, they were the hottest team in the league.
Okay.
What was it? Yeah, like the early '90s Cowboys teams, like Cocaine and Hose. It was just basically that was Dallas. And I really started loving the sport then.
Okay.
That was my team, and I rode with them. And unfortunately, I've had to live with it ever since, and it's a painful experience every year past that original '90s team.
I guess. Okay, so what's wrong with him being a Cardinals fan?
Because they didn't have that excuse. The Cardinals haven't won a Super Bowl since 1973.
So that he might like find something about them to identify with that is anything other than like glorification and praise.
It's just strange. It is a strange thing for a football fan. It is a weird thing, especially if that's not a team that you live. Like, there are people who are Cleveland Browns fans, God bless their heart, where you're just like, why? They haven't won a championship since your grandpa was alive. How is that even something? But if you grew up there, I get it. The
reason I ask is because that's the kind of thing that happens all over the place. Like, a dude I used to work with, he and all his friends got into real football around the same time. And like they were, that's not true. All his friends were already established fans and he wasn't so much, but they got him into it. And so it was like them hanging around, watching games and stuff, for like, a few months or whatever, until he finally like named his support for a club. And he finally did, and his whole reveal was kind of like he wore the shirt under his jacket, so they got to the bar, and he like took off his jacket, and everybody's like, you're a fucking, I don't remember which club, if it was Manchester or Arsenal or whoever the fuck. And I don't remember the reasoning he gave, but I did ask him because I was curious, because I don't understand this shit at all. I don't really understand what about it any given sports team makes anybody feel like, unless if for some reason you like sports, which that on its own isn't something I totally understand, but like when you feel like a strong attraction to a particular team, when it's something like American football or whatever, one of our other favorite sports, more often than not, it seems to be whatever one you grew up with, whether that's your team or not, like your local team, or not, right? If it's your parents were from Pittsburgh, but you live in fucking Kansas City or something,
right?
Like you're gonna grow up a Steelers fan,
right? Because that's what your parents were,
right?
Yeah,
makes total sense. But if if you are from a completely different continent where your sport of choice isn't even a thing, and you find you dig soccer, how is it you come to love a soccer team, right? Like, and I asked him, and so that's why I was asking you that, is because like when he told me, like he gave me like what surprised me at the time with like a really 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 pretty fucking compelling, like, well, these are just all the things that make me want to, that this is why this is the club I support, that I was surprised there was anything more to it than this is what I grew up with. But obviously I knew there had to be, because he didn't grow up with soccer. So I was like, wondering if there was anything other than basically because I knew he didn't grow up in Dallas.
Yeah, no, it's I've always been enamored with the team and the mystique behind it. Jerry Jones is probably one of the coolest, I won't say coolest, one of the most interesting figures in sports. His upbringing, where he came from, like what he ended up doing, what he's built the franchise to be, being the third highest grossing franchise in all of sports, including soccer, is nuts. Like to think of where that team was when he bought it versus where they are now it's really it's a unique franchise to be a part of. And then plus, there are very few franchises in all of sports that make you love or hate them as much as Dallas does.
Sure.
Like, there are people who are extreme Cowboy haters. Like, they don't even watch football and will just hate on the Cowboys just because it's a thing to do. So, yeah, it's kind of stuck. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I don't know.
So,
maybe I've just been around too many people who seem to say that about their own team.
Mm-hmm. Well, you don't see Pico saying that about the Browns.
Well, no. Your dad and the Patriots. Either you are a die-hard, they're the best fucking team
Kyle
ever.
Shepard. Jesus Christ.
Or it's like they're loathed.
right. Pause.
Like by you.
So now where do we go? What do we do?
Well, I don't know. This whole thing was supposed to be about male mental health, and it just ended up being about mental health in general.
But you know what? That's good, though. I think the conversation around mental health has to be made.
How about this? How about I just take a completely left turn and say something that I was thinking about earlier today when I was thinking about what we were going to talk about. And
that sounds like a good move.
I like that.
Talk about how the history of mental health has made it easier for women to talk about it, despite it being because it was a horrible, horrible thing to women for so long. In that, back in the day, women used to get sent to the sanatorium for wanting to have sex. Actually wanting to have sex. Or because they would actually get upset at their husbands for something they did wrong. And they were just called hysterical. Like
I got you. Go ahead.
Is that the word?
Yes.
Okay. The origins of the word hysterical are the same origins of the word
They share a common root. Hysterectomy.
hysterectomy.
Hyster. Yes. It's.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So because of women basically being told they're crazy for just about anything that has to do with being a woman, and getting sent to sanatoriums, it was brought to attention of people who like actually wanted to change that bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
But men didn't really get sent there unless they actually were insane.
That's
or
I wouldn't say that's accurate.
Or like it was something else, like something.
Well, this is about how the notion of what is considered deviant has changed over time.
Yeah.
That it's not necessarily the case that men were only sent
That's
to the
the word I
sanitarium.
was trying to think of.
Yeah.
Was deviant. I said actually insane, and then I couldn't think of the word, but deviant was the one I
Deviant,
was
yeah.
trying to.
But the thing is that like what is deviant is totally is culturally defined rather than medically defined. And so this is why, a woman would be locked up in a padded cell for liking sex. This is why this is why the word nymphomaniac still exists.
Yeah.
This was not about women who had like what we would consider today an extremely active sex drive. This was about women who like actually expressed any amount of sexual gratification at all. Yeah, it's real fucked. We've come a long way. Like it's easy to think of how dark things are now, and like we shouldn't stop doing that. Everyone, think about how dark things are now.
Yeah, and how much work we got to do.
Yeah,
we got a ways to go.
Yeah,
but that's sad. I mean, well,
but because of that happening, there were people who spoke out against it and who actually did sciencey stuff.
Research.
There we go.
I was going to run with sciencey stuff. I knew what you meant. If you didn't know what
sciencey stuff.
Scientific sciencey stuff. You know what? You get to say stuff like that when you can't think of the word. So I get to say stuff like that when I can't think of the word. Granted, it happens to me a hell of a lot more often than it happens to you, but who cares?
What's awesome about me is that never happens, and I always know exactly what words to use.
Unenrailed.
Yeah.
Okay, so you talking about that is interesting, because then this opens up just a random question from somebody in the peanut gallery.
It's not
remember
random.
the movie. Sorry.
And you're not
in
the peanut gallery.
Do you remember
Only
the movie?
I have a question is the thing that you just said that was true. Everything else is nonsense.
How about the...
Do you remember the movie Lincoln?
Yes.
Do you think
that one about Lincoln?
Yeah, that one movie about Lincoln.
Okay.
That one. Do you think the way that we view his wife is more because of the stigmatism? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Was more about the stigmatism that they had about mental health?
Stigma.
Absolutely.
Stigma. Thank you.
Not stigmatism.
You know what? Look at here. We're all saying words that don't work. Dang it. And I am here for it. Come at me, grammar police. I'm right here. Anyway, I'm sorry. Do you think that based itself around...
Absolutely.
So you don't think that she was actually like that? You think it was more because of that was what...
I think she was very, very cripplingly depressed.
I've always read her story that way too.
Yep.
I've She gets painted by history as being
just crazy.
But that's she was depressed.
She was
that's
a person with severe depression who was also dealing with extreme grief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know what more needs to be said about her, but say the more you were going to say. I didn't mean to like cut you off with that. I just mean I was just agree. And also, you go.
If I'm remembering, granted, I've only seen that particular movie once.
It was incredible.
But if I am remembering it correctly, I might be remembering it incorrectly. I'll rewatch it and then I will come back to it when we do our updates and whatnot episode. I'm trying to remember if I'm remembering the movie itself correctly and her portrayal, because that's or if it's just the cloud of me.
Well, just throw it out there because I
believing that of her.
I've never fucking seen it. I've never actually seen that movie.
If I am remembering,
you've never seen Lincoln?
No.
Oh, it's a good movie. Amazing movie. Yeah.
If I'm remembering it correctly, and it's not just the veil that I'm putting over it because of how I view her and her situation, they actually did a pretty good job, or rather, what's her name? The actress?
Sally Field.
Sally Field did a pretty good job, in my view, of actually portraying that, not portraying her as crazy, but portraying her as a broken woman, broken, grieving woman.
She did. She actually did a very good job. Lincoln's if you ever want to sit through a 3-hour movie, it is.
I often want to sit through 3-hour movies. I love long movies.
It is a very Daniel Day-Lewis. I mean, it's Daniel Day-Lewis.
Can do no wrong.
Yeah, I wonder how many different women were painted in history differently than who they were because of what we didn't understand.
Mm-hmm.
Many, lots. There are numbers that when you throw them out are scary, and I'm sure that a number like that kind of a number exists for the number of women who were lobotomized for being human.
That's tough.
We've done some shit, man. We're not really super great as a culture.
There's so much that, I mean, I know no one person puts it on their shoulders, but as a straight male, I feel like there's so much I have to do to make up for my predecessors and their lack of empathy in so many different scenarios.
I don't feel like me being apologetic for the way men are, me being apologetic for the way that what straight people are, the way whatever other demographics I may, personally occupy. I don't feel like I can apologize for them because I already don't sympathize with them as the group that they're portrayed as being. And I never felt like I was part of that in the first place, whatever it is, whatever the particular thing is. There's never, other than Christian, even then fundamentalist, specifically evangelical, that was a really limited portion of my life. And I only ever decry that now, and I have for a very long time. So it's like, it's really, really hard for me to feel like I'm responsible for the way that anybody is. I feel like I'm responsible for the way that I am. And it's not being a good ally to apologize for the way that anybody who preceded you was. It's being a good ally to be understanding and empathetic and protective where necessary. And I don't want apologies. I don't want acknowledgments. I want fucking equality for real. I want these barriers to be fucking smashed. I don't want us to think of each other as black or white or man or woman or gay or straight. I want us to think of each other as fucking brother and, well, even that's gendered, I guess, but as comrade.
As family.
As human. Yeah. So it's really, really hard for me to think in any kind of, whether it's binary or not, any kind of like, specifically designated term, anything that's rooted in segregation, basically. Anything that would differentiate me from you, I hate. I want that to be smashed. I want that to go away because all it does is reinforce the differences between us. And when we start making our identities about those differences, we start hurting people, just as a matter of course. There's no way for that not to happen. Because at any point, whether it's us or you, one or the other may come to power. And when that happens, the one who's in power is going to start, well, if not to specifically and intentionally marginalize the one who now is under power, at the very least start magnifying the others like the ones in power. That only ever has a detrimental effect on society because the majority of people are almost definitely guaranteed not to be part of whatever that power
in
group
power
is.
Mm-hmm.
look at our current political, is it just me or has it gotten more magnified since we were kids?
What? Which?
Or is it just that I'm more aware of it?
You're just more aware of it now.
Democrats versus
what's the it?
The Democrats. I was just saying.
So Democrats versus Republicans.
But what do you mean? Can you expand a little bit on that? Because I think I get what you mean, but I'm not.
It feels like it's even more polarized.
Like if you're not them, then you're wrong.
Now, Republicans, so many Republicans, even now with all of the like impeachment talk and everything, certain Republicans read the transcript and are saying, yeah, there's nothing there, even though, I mean, there's something there.
Yeah, but they're lying.
They are still coming out and saying it just because he's Republican, therefore they're Republicans, therefore they have to agree with him. And it's the same way with Democrats, to where when Obama was president, they still agreed with everything and tried to help push even like a lot of what he was doing was, relatively positive.
But then there are the war crimes.
Yeah, exactly. But it was, but there's, from Democrats in Congress and whatnot, it was, ignore that. He's getting Obamacare,
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Wow.
So
what that is, I think, is this is another way in which the mess of systems that we currently live under has really, really fucked with our need as individuals to participate in society. We've done this horrible thing where we've drawn these lines, and it's not just specific to politics, but as far as American politics are concerned, you don't even get to be on the left or the right. You get to be a Republican or you get to be a Democrat. I mean, independents get lip service, but independents are all over the place on the spectra. It's that we need to feel part of something desperately, and once we find something that we can be a part of, something we can identify with, something that we be part of who we are, that becomes our identity.
I would say it becomes who we are.
Yeah, it's not about the other people being wrong. It's not about the other people being ideologically opposed. It's about them being not us. And we really, really need an us. This is why I still find it in me to have any amount of empathy at all for right-wingers, even though ideologically I'm opposed on basically everything, is because I know that they are a victim. Fundamentally, they're a victim of exactly the same set of psychological traps most people are. As an extremist, I really don't see there being a huge amount of difference between Democrats and Republicans anyway. As far as I'm concerned, they're all fucking liberals.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that they are like picking teams against each other even when they're like ideologically not all that far opposed. Really?
I still am struggling with that.
Which
what do you mean?
With the having empathy. Maybe it's because I had so much empathy most of my life for just about everyone and had it taken advantage of in a lot of ways. And I kind of burnt myself out on empathy. But I'm to that point now where it's like that bottom of the ravine where I'm trying to go back up, that I struggle with not losing faith in humanity at times. And I'm trying to get out of that ditch and work my way back up to having that empathy again,
I totally understand. It's a difficult set of shit to be up against. It took me a while to work my way around too, because it's really, really easy to moralize, and I don't say that in an accusatory way. I'm every bit as guilty of it as anybody.
I'll be right back. Come inside.
Are we pausing? That's some shit that I have a bit of a hard time with too, is the idea of recognizing toxic masculinity for what it is. Like, and I understand, I guess this comes back to empathy too, of single-mindedness, of understanding, is I get why there's a sector of people who have this strong reaction against the notion of, well, the kind of people who would become, and it's really, really hard for me to say the term without obvious scorn, because I do think that they're fully just fucking nonsense, ridiculous. People who would become men's rights activists.
Oh.
I know, right?
It's tough
disgusting.
not to think about that. Stop it. Like
It's
sorry.
disgusting. But
Like straight Pride Day, that was
that shit is ridiculous.
Oh
right?
my goodness!
I know.
Stop it.
It's getting more and more difficult for me though, not to see stuff like that and feel a little bit of like, man, I understand where you're coming from. Not because I agree with anything they've got to say. Everything they've got to say is bullshit. What I'm starting to see though is not what they say, but where the kind of environment they're coming from that got them to say that dumb shit in the first place. Like, because it's not about that they're like that committed to the equality of whatever. They're not.
Yeah.
Most of the crap they say has to do with like maintaining masculine superiority in the cultural eye, but that they feel like they're under attack. They're not.
No.
The straight fact is they have everything.
Yeah.
And therefore, one might say, since they have everything to lose. I say they have everything, therefore they have nothing to lose. If equality happens, then everyone's on the same page. They're not losing anything. They're just keeping the status they have, and then other people are also having that status. That's not losing anything.
But if you ask them from their point of view, it's because they have that status. If you were to give somebody else an even footing, that would make them feel less special.
See, I don't think so. I don't agree. I think that being as they are in a position of privilege, even though they don't realize they're in a position of privilege, they think to bring anyone else up to their level means they have to give something up for that to happen. And that's not true, practically speaking. That's completely untrue. That's not the case. But they do feel that for other people to gain the same rights they have, even though they don't realize they have rights other people don't. They don't realize that. They do feel like for other people to occupy the same space, they have to give up some of the space. And so they feel like they're being knocked down.
Well, that's what I mean. Less special.
Yeah. Well, but they see it in terms of other people taking from them. Like that for other people to occupy the same space, they have to give up the space. They don't see the space as being infinite, which it practically is.
It is, yeah.
Right. Like,
because everybody can feel the same. Everyone can be just as cared for as you feel you are right now, and you not have to give that up.
Right. Yes. Totally. And so, like, I agree that they're incorrect in their assessment of the situation, but I also understand that that's how they feel, even though they're wrong. They're straight up incorrect, but it's hard for me not to acknowledge that they feel the way they do. So what I'm trying to take is this perspective on people like that. I was gonna say dudes like that. I don't know why I swapped to people like that, because it is mostly dudes.
It is mostly dudes. Yeah.
Is not to be so condemning of them, because the thing is, what they're up against isn't what they think they're up against. Like, their assessment of their situation is incorrect. I'm trying to be more understanding and more open to their own reporting of their own experiences and their own feelings, because even though they're wrong about their conclusions, they feel the way they do for a reason, and the reason has nothing to do with minorities getting more attention. It's nothing to do with women getting more attention. It's everything to do with the fact that they're feeling disenfranchised.
Okay, and this is where I guess I'm not as good at seeing this as you guys may be. I struggle with that harder than anybody. Like, I find it absolutely fascinating when I see a European male feel that way about anything. Because in my head, I'm like, dude, you've had every luxury afforded to you in the stance that you can live a life however you choose without having to worry about looking over your shoulder.
Well, the thing about that, though, is this is a place where I would say that your own experiences kind of blind you to those of others. And I feel really fucking awkward as a white dude saying that to a black dude, but
no. And you know what?
That feels kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah, but I'm not oblivious enough to not see it. It probably does. Like, it more than likely does.
My position is that that's something almost everyone experiences, and I will absolutely say that it happens to some people to a greater degree than others. Because to your assertion that it's weird for a white dude, like, yeah, you're right on one hand, to say that it's strange that they would feel that way, given that they actually have been afforded like every possible privilege and luxury. But that's only in relation to everyone who isn't them.
Yeah.
But the thing is that everyone who isn't them isn't just black or brown people or women or whatever. Like that's also rich people, not poor people. And like I'm never one to want to assert that that class matters and race doesn't. Because like they're both obviously extremely important.
Yeah.
But that like so many of these issues that people attribute to race are actually class issues, not race issues. And so for white dudes to level that kind of complaint or that kind of assertion from where you're standing, I can totally understand where you're coming from, because like in relation to what you've been up against in your life, you're right. It is ridiculous in that context. But for people who occupy this, generally speaking, privileged class, to feel that way is to say that, and why I can't help but have some measure of empathy for them, is that even though they're, this is what I'm talking about with disenfranchisement, right? Like, because they're in a class that has historically been extraordinarily privileged. And even today, despite everything they may be up against, they're in a position of privilege in relation to people who do not have the same social privilege. That doesn't mean they don't have hardship. And I don't mean that to say that, I don't mean that in a not all men kind of way. I mean that in a, we don't give credit to class where it's really due. Because these people may occupy, like I said, several classes that are historically privileged, and even in the current context are more privileged than people of other classes. But that doesn't mean they're not capable of being disenfranchised, because the thing is, while they may have more privileges than other people, that they're any more capable of succeeding than those very people they have more privileges than. That's why I would draw the line between a white dude who was born into abject poverty and a white dude who was born into generational wealth.
Yeah.
Functionally, the poor white dude is no different from anyone of any other class. They have the same struggles. Only because now those poor white dudes born into the kind of families who make jack shit money and are only able to subsist by way of the paltry government aid they qualify for, because they make just slightly too much to be able to like get food stamps or welfare or whatever. They are working their asses off to get nowhere and are being told by the larger cultural narrative that they're in a position of privilege and they should shut the fuck up about their hardships. So you can see, I think, why they would have a bit of a fucking problem being told they're privileged when they are working for fucking peanuts. If they're even lucky enough to find a job, they can never get anywhere. The American dream is fully dead. They don't have actual opportunity at all. And you know what I mean? Like, it's not...
You're absolutely right. And this, I don't want to say this because this is not exactly what I mean, but screw it. We're getting close to the witching hour, so I'm just going to go ahead and say it. It's what got Donald Trump elected.
It is exactly what got Donald Trump elected.
It's exactly what got Donald Trump elected.
I've been on about this lately, man. It's
those people, that market that you just described, are the ones who got him elected.
What I've had to say about this is, when you look at the complaints that those people have, what the problems that they're facing off against constantly. Really listen to them, listen to their talking points, listen to the stuff that they're getting at. And I know that a lot of it is going to come tinged with a lot of horrible shit, a lot of misogyny, a lot of white supremacy, a lot of horrible, just the worst shit. But the problems they talk about, if you can divorce the problems they talk about having from the people they blame them on, you start to see that what they're up against is alienation, is disenfranchisement. They're talking about being in a system that doesn't give a fuck about them. I think the only reason they are where they are is because the left doesn't hang out in fucking 4chan. The severe right does. And so it was the severe right that found those people first. If it was left-wing voices that managed to capture those people first, that heard what they had to say and said, dude,
we hear you.
We're hear you. We are you. Here's what the problems are. Here's what's causing this. They would have probably latched onto that shit, but instead the right heard them first. They can latch onto that shit because they need a fucking answer. They
needed something.
They need something to blame, because it can't be their fault that they're in the position they're in. Because the thing is, they make that assumption. Anybody on the right wing would probably say it is your fault. Facts don't care about your feelings, maybe, if you just didn't take that shitty job. The real truth is, it is someone else's fault, but it's not black people, and it's not gay people, and it's not women. It's the fucking capitalists. Or rather, it is capitalism. It's everything about the system that goes out of its way to exploit you and make sure that you know you are worth fucking nothing. And that's why you'll work for whatever we're willing to pay you, even if it's practically nothing. If those people could have been captured by real fucking sense and a real analytical look at the systems that we live under, maybe we could have had a stronger voice now. But those people are, for the time being anyway, lost to the right wing.
And the part that kills me the most about those, if you just follow the logic, you're telling me that a man whose father was wealthy by exploiting other poor people is now going to care about you being poor? Like, if you just say that phrase, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
Yeah.
They are ride or fucking die.
Like, you just say it out loud just because he can say bullshit in a tweet. Does that make you feel some type of way? What was it? He tweeted 800 times the last month? Aren't you
well, it's because,
busy?
Like,
like, don't you have stuff to do?
well, I mean, like Michael Che said, it's because he's strong. He's very, very strong. Like, what's his face from Mice and Men?
Mice and Men? Oh, God.
So this is what, we're talking about when we talk about intersectionality. It's got everything to do with, well, a whole lot of shit that doesn't get talked about. Things get blamed for people's problems left and fucking right, and most of the time those things are not to blame. It's just people are given an easy answer, even when those answers are easily exactly.
You give somebody a boogeyman, you give them something to be scared of, so that way they can go and say that's the reason. Not it's smoke and mirrors.
It's 100% smoke and mirrors, and this is what I despise about politics. Is it always comes down to being able to dupe people into believing a bunch of bullshit to win a meaningless race. The truth is, like, whether a Democrat or a Republican gets in office, who gives a fuck? The truth is, like, they're both ultimately serving the same interest. So what fucking difference does it make which party is in power? Like, I mean, okay, it does make a bit of a difference because, but only so much. Because if a liberal is in power, and by that I mean like standard, not what we as Americans think of it as in a liberal political theory, capital L liberal, gets into power, and I don't mean the more progressive, your standard liberal, right? Gets into power, they're going to roll right over for anything that tends toward fascism, because anything that's centrist goes out of its way to kind of help just kind of not rock the boat. They want to maintain the status quo. They want to, so they won't do anything that's like anything with what to them would constitute bad optics, right? Of being like too aggressive, too for anything. They just want to kind of go with the flow. And the thing is, under capitalism, the flow often is like moving pretty certainly toward fucking fascism. And in a system like that, the right wing tends to be more and more and more and more outright fascist. And so the Democrats, the liberals are in power. They're not moving anything further left. The Republicans get in power. They move things further right. The Democrats get in power. They maintain the status quo. The Republicans get in power. They move things further right. It's always this constant march toward fascism. And as that happens, the Overton window shifts rightward with it. And now we're to the point where we think that Democrats are left, when the left is so far fucking further left than any Democratic platform point that we can't see that for what it is. And now, like, in America, we think that centrist right-wingers are the left. And now anything that's further left than that sounds fucking crazy. Sounds radical. Sounds like we just want to fucking...
You just want to tear it all down.
Yeah.
Or tear it all down and start all over again.
And then, like, there's going to be people who are, like, super pissed off at me right now about saying it's a constant march toward fascism because those left-wingers, they say everything's Nazis. Well, I fucking calls them as I sees them, dude. So we've gone far enough in this direction. RJ, what the fuck?
You were... Oh, shit. You told me to remember that. I'm sorry. We got talking, and then we got to talking about his orange ass, and my brain got angry. I'm sorry.
I'm having a similar issue.
I have failed. As soon as anybody brings him up to me, I get so annoyed. And I know you probably don't care about this part of it because of how you feel about everything moving to the right of it. But for me, the legacy of what could have been President Obama's 8 years, to me, feels like it was meant for nothing. Absolutely nothing. And maybe this is because I know we live in the world that we live in. The war crimes and drone strikes, I get it wasn't great.
Yeah, it wasn't.
It wasn't the cleanest.
Yeah.
I know. I understand that. But just to see,
you know what the thing is, that he's the best our generation has ever had.
Yeah, to see the smile on kids' faces who otherwise believe politics never reflected them.
That matters a lot.
It had to. Like I felt like it had to. And now to see this.
I know, it's a fucking travesty, because we were like, criticize him as a politician all day long.
Yeah.
And I fucking will. But he represented something greater than that. And we've thrown that progress to the fucking dogs.
Yeah. I mean, in the rest of the world's eyes,
it meant a lot for representation, and now it's out the fucking window.
Yeah, like the rest of the world, when he was in office, say what you will, viewed that as something so, all right, the United States is coming along.
Yeah.
They're finally starting to get it. And then this shows up, and they're like, or the fuck not. Maybe not. Let's backtrack off that sentiment. Because now it's gone. And it's hard not to be distraught about that.
I'm with you.
It's super hard not to be distraught about that.
The fact that he got elected in the first place meant so much. And I mean, I do think that his whole campaign was marketed on being a lot more progressive than it actually
ended up being.
Ever was gonna be.
Absolutely.
And I will say that I think that a lot of his policy stances were, like, maybe not from where I'm looking now, but from where I was at the time, certainly, like, were a lot more forward focused than any of his opponents. And certainly what we have now in power, not our running goods, because it's currently October of 2019, and so we've got Bernie in the game, but he's not the one who's making the decisions now. So when what we have now, I'm talking about the orange. Anybody listening from the future,
you'll read about this in the history, I'm sure.
Or you won't. Depends on who wins.
Yeah.
Everything about what we have now feels extremely regressive. You know how we do. I'm not going to make a big thing out of this. Like, subscribe, share, check us out on Anchor. We love you very much. Good night.